We are primarily internal services to other departments. Our main services are the IT Help Desk, GIS services, device management, and applications. How we kind of monitor both our performance and areas that maybe we can improve is we do internal customer services surveys on those 4 areas. So 2021, 2022, we sent out surveys. We only received 8 responses in 2021 and 10 responses in 2022. I take that to be good news because when people aren't happy, they like to tell you. So I think that's good. We asked kind of all the same questions. These next slides I won't go over in detail. I think you've seen them, but you can kind of see that people are quite satisfied, I think, with those services that are being provided. We take that information, we do feedback on it, we make budget adjustments if we need to address any concerns that get raised. One of the things from last year that we implemented this year that we see has had significant impact is the IT co-op student. And so we're really appreciative of that. One thing, I guess, we have an ideal for IT help desk that we try to meet. And this is our graph. We review it every month on our one-on-ones. We do it individually. This is what our department looks like collectively. So you can see that our number of service requests, which is going up, but our time to respond is pretty flat. And that's what we want to see. It means that we're providing consistent service despite the number of service requests. It's a little high, that number. It's not where we want to be, so that's an area that we want to work on. GIS services, same thing. We asked pretty much the same questions, try to get a sense of what value customers are finding in the GIS services. And I didn't include this, but I thought I should, especially after Sherry, is we had an external evaluation of our GIS program, and it's with the public sector. It's international, so it takes into account organizations that submit from across Canada, the US, and Australia. And we came in, I know maybe it doesn't sound good, but 10th out of all of those organizations, but we're #1 in organizations of our size. So yeah, very pleased, very pleased. Device management is another core service that we provide. And again, you'll see the responses that we received. Applications, that's another service we provide. And we kind of want to take a look at what kind of value they find in each of those applications. If we find an application isn't providing value to the organization, we would then consider bringing it out of budget. We do have one service we provide that interacts with the public, and that's our public web map. And in 2019 and 2020, we did a public web map survey. And this shows you kind of the number of responses we got, how people use it, whether it's personal use or for business use, and if they've ever used it. The next slide kind of told us if they didn't use it, why didn't they? And then we took action with that. One thing was a lot of people said we didn't even know it existed, so we started advertising our promotion campaign to try to make sure that everybody knew it was there. Another thing that came back was, well, we don't know how to use it, so then we put together some promotional material and we sent that out to the public so that people knew how to use it. And we had someone said it'd be nice if it was an app. So we found a way that we could actually feed it through an existing app, an Esri app. And so we sent that out for people too. We also want to understand what layers were of interest to the public. And this is interesting because I said, why do we have gravel program on the public web map? We should just get rid of that. It made no sense to me. But then when you look, the gravel program was something that the public was interested in knowing. So that was good feedback for us. Next, move into IT service capacity. We have what we call our IT roadmap, we have our Agile Scrum, and we have our SysAid service requests. The things that go on our roadmap and our Agile Scrum all come from these areas. They come from the budget, asset management improvement plan, preventative maintenance and security plan, our 5-year GIS plan, corporate and council priorities, education plans, our IT SWOT and strategic plan, backup retention schedule, non-functional requirements, and internal committees and priorities, goals and priorities. So those are the things that go on to our roadmap, and every year we build a roadmap. So this is our 2021 IT roadmap. You can see they had a total of 174 items on there. 106 were completed, 25 were in progress, and 48 did not get started. It says a little bit about our workload. Every item on there is not equal. For example, you'll see one item is updating Windows, but that has to be done 12 times a year. So some things are a single action and then they're completed. Other things actually have a lot more that need to be done to have them completed. 2021 saw us complete 60.92%. And if you add in progress, it was 74.71%. So the rest of that had to be carried forward to 2022. So our 2022 IT roadmap, we project is going to be 85 to 90% completed, noting that I've already reviewed it and carried forward 25 items into 2023. You can kind of take a look and see the areas that we are struggling a little bit to get things done, unplanned. You can see we have a number of unplanned items that come onto our plate that we didn't anticipate and did not originally go onto our roadmap. There's some preventative maintenance items that we still haven't been able to. Most of those are related to consistent updating of applications, which is not always desirable by our customers. So we're working with them to have a more refined schedule for that. Training often goes to the wayside, to the bottom of the list, or the priority of what training needs to be done gets changed. Programs and services, we fall a little bit behind. I'll discuss about some of the reasons that we're falling behind on these things in a few minutes. We wanted to bring in a 5S inspection program this year. That would have been new. We struggled a little bit in trying to get that on a day-to-day basis and consistent. And there are some capital projects that didn't get done. So we can talk, I'll summarize a little bit about why those things are at the end. In addition to our roadmap, we have our IT Agile Scrum. We've completed 1,127 items on that list. It might be that we have one capital project as an item on our roadmap, maybe individual things that need to get done within the context of that capital project will go on our Agile Scrum, and we monitor that on a daily basis. Service requests, you can see the impact of the IT co-op student. I think with that, you can see we've freed up time. I think important things to note is the number of service requests open versus the number of service requests that were closed. We closed 36 more than we had open so far this year, and our time to complete the service request has come down. So talk a little bit about the trend. So operating budget, this trend, I noticed it a few years ago. It continues to where things become hosted, software becomes subscription-based, we have cloud-based services. All of those show our software trending up. Our hardware is trending down. So as things come off-premise and go more cloud-based or service-based, we have less hardware that we have to maintain and pay warranty and support for. So we I call them my 3 mountain peaks, and that's where the bulk of our budget is related to IT across all functions. It's hardware, software, and professional services. Looking at capital budget, we have a number of carry forwards. Some of those are voluntary, some of them are not. So the plotter, I think Matt touched on the laminator, has been removed. We did an analysis and discussions with the organization and understood that that was not required to be replaced. Our plotter, we do a condition assessment on it every year. So we do annual maintenance and condition assessment. And based on that inspection, we felt comfortable carrying it forward. I think this is for the 2nd year in a row. Smartboard as well, condition assessment is good. Printers, we look back on our maintenance history and had very little maintenance history. And as well, we have redundancy with printers. If one goes down, we do have other printers that we can use. Then we get to the network replacement and the meter reader. Both of those are supply chain issues. So what happened is this will be the 2nd year that we've carried forward the network replacement, and that's because we just received the hardware just last week. And we probably won't be able to secure the professional services until January of next year. The meter reader, we ordered, that was ordered early in the year. It's not expected to arrive until March 2023. A couple of items that we do have new this year. They're not new, they're actually replacements. So there's a video conferencing equipment that was put in 2013 when this building was built. We know we have challenges. You guys don't always see what happens, but we heard there was going to be a testing of the generator today, and IT went crazy because we were concerned if there was a little blip in the power that we might have trouble in the council chambers today. And that's just, you know, the age of the equipment. If it goes down, we have greater struggles and delay in getting them up. Microsoft Server Data Center, the current version of that software that we have on our servers is end of life on October 2023, so we need to get that replaced. And we have a 360 camera that we have been using. One of the things that we use it for, we took 360 images of Emerson Bridge Park. That is on our website for the public to be able to view those websites before they book. We also use it for our hamlets to help reduce the number of times that staff have to travel out to hamlets. So the camera works, it's working, but we have a problem with connectivity. They've gone out several times and come back with no images on there. So what they found is they need two people, one person to do the driving, the other person to monitor the connectivity. So we're hoping if we replace that camera, we won't have that issue anymore.
Question, Polly, please.
So tell me in what situations you use this 360 camera and how often you use it. I'm just not clear on that.
So we use it, like I mentioned, at the Emerson Bridge Park. So it's for the public, they can view at street level. It's like Google Street level. Sorry?
Where else do you use it? I get that one, but where else?
Along roads. So if you go on the internal web map and you go to the 360 images, you're going to see there's 3 or 4 roads that have been 360 imaged, so people can take a look at that. We also have Lake Newell Resort has been done, and I think the plan had been this year to complete the other hamlets at street level, but because of the problems with the camera, they went out a few times and they failed to actually capture them.
And how is this useful to people to see roads? Like I'm not following you.
So it's an operational question that I'll do my best to answer, and nobody's here, so I'll do the best I can to answer. So I think what it does is it actually gives them a street level view, and they can see kind of what things are in a certain point in time and be able to better make decisions. And I think it's also used for the planning department. I think that would be one of their ways for them to get a view of what's happening or what exists in those hamlets without actually having to travel. Matt, I don't know. Good? Okay.
Lynette, please.
Seeing as we're asking questions, what's a plotter?
That's our big printer that prints all the wall maps. Yes. Sorry, that's a good one. Yeah. So I was really happy to listen in to the CIBC because I think it really touches on a lot of the reasons why we have to defer work, some of the challenges that we face, why the costs are going up related to the operating budget. Just in time, that's what contributes to the supply chain issue. So we're not, the supply and the demand are not matched. There's a greater demand than there is supply. That's really what that's caused is for us to defer a lot of work, even as simple things as our refresh program where we purchased laptops. And with those laptops, we have docks. We waited almost 8 months for the docks to arrive. And until the docks arrived, we couldn't issue the laptops to people. So the supply chain, that just-in-time methodology, which is good when you have a good flow and an equal distribution between supply and demand. When it's not, it doesn't work so well. So what happens is then it talks like the CIBC talked about is tight capacity. And once you get tight capacity, it's hard to catch up. So when you have just enough service capacity to deal with the work that you have, and then you have these delays in products getting to you, which then pushes it to the next year, well, you still have your regular work for the next year as well as the additional capital projects. And so that can start building up. I think one of the challenges, there's been a definite increase in the cost of software over the last year or so. I think that combined with inflation is one thing that is contributing to that. The other thing, as CIBC talked about, is the value of the US dollar compared to other currencies. And so what that does is it devalues our dollar against the purchase of anything that we get from the US, accompanied with inflation, and their inflation is greater than ours, so I think it has a greater impact. There's been some other things that have come into play, policies that have impacted us a little bit. The credit card, a lot of things we pay for is by credit card. I'm sure all of you are aware that there is now opportunity for credit cards to charge back, the vendors to charge back the credit card fees to the purchaser. We've run into where that could become a problem, or on the other hand, is they want a different method of payment so that they don't suffer that loss on top of everything else. So those are kind of a quick summary of everything.
Thank you, Roberta. Any questions? Good. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate that. I'm going to suggest we take 5 minutes and bring back whatever you need to bring back, and we'll move with Mark, please. We will reconvene our meeting. Moving to municipal services, item number 9, Mr. Mark HARBICHT. Welcome. Todd, are we on? Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, this is your second interim budget presentation from myself. I just want to start out that, I'm supported by an excellent team, and that goes right down to my frontline staff. We've had a core here for the decade that I've been here and more. I'm actually just about 15 years now and working with most of the same people. Some of those frontline workers have had opportunities to move up and advance. Others are happy serving in the capacity that they're in and continue to do so. And I just want to express my many thanks to them for what they do day in and day out. Obviously, when the snow flies and the ice forms on the roads and stuff, they're the ones that everybody looks to the most. We pride ourselves on working to provide efficient, effective services for our ratepayers, and I believe you should see that reflected in the interim budget proposed to you today. So if we can start with function 26, bylaw enforcement. We have 2 municipal enforcement officers here, no change to that. The Smart Squad OmniGo software integration, this is something that we've transitioned to as part of the municipal provincial e-ticketing initiative and whatnot. The 2 systems speak together. It's alleviated approximately 95% of the administration time that we had 2 staff working on previously. So we're not copying data from one system to another and having that repetitive work. So that's what that's about for $3,300. And then we have an electronic speed sign replacement. Again, this is a replacement. We had an initiative a number of years back, grant funded for electronic speed signs as you enter communities. We do move them around from time to time, not frequently. They're not the easiest things to coordinate movements for, but we do move them. The sign that's being proposed to be replaced, it's been problematic when it's been sent in for services, repairs. It comes back, it works for a bit, it's down with something different. So we just need to get that bug out of our system and get a new one in place and move forward in a much better manner of things. So replacement of these things is the way it goes. Other than that, we continue to work with our services, customer service delivery, particularly with our municipal partners and municipal enforcement. So Town of Bazzano, Villages of Rosemary, Dutchess, and of course the Eastern Irrigation District. They set the priorities for our officers within their given boundaries, and we carry those out, and most everybody is very satisfied with services provided to date. So we look forward to working with all of them, and that's what I have for function 26. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none? Soldier on.
Function 31, another smaller department, but one that's heavily relied upon is fleet services. Over the past year, we've been going through a restructuring. We put in a second mechanic in place where we had a supervisor that was about a 95% mechanic and 5% supervisor in that role. It transitioned in under operations, so Mr. Terry Schroeder, manager of operations, is overseeing that, working with 2 mechanics and the fleet and inventory assistant. Workload in there is manageable. Anything that is not manageable or specialized service, so we don't do anything with tires ourselves. We take them to the tire service shops in town. Windshields, things like that, those are all contracted out. We don't deal with that. What we are doing is explosion-proof cabinets. This is one of those safety things that happens in the workplace. When we moved over to the facility, we moved some of our old cabinets and stuff. Let's just be honest, they didn't meet what they should for being in the location that they're in. So having some of those explosive or combustible materials stored in proper cabinets is a reflection of safety on ourselves. So we want to get that done. The Identifix, the Snap-on, and the Allison software, as all of these vehicles advance, everything is coming down to the diagnostics and sorting through the electronics. This is what we need out of things. So we're getting rid of the Identifix software. That's a negative 1.9 thousand. The Snap-on and Allison are to replace that, as well as provide us a little bit more value added in our diagnostic side of things. And then we've also reduced the repairs and maintenance building budget, $16,700 per year. That was something that we've carried for practically a decade since we moved over here, because we weren't sure between facility side of things and our side of things as to who truly had what. And I think we've worked that out over the last decade, so it can be removed from the budget. Otherwise, yeah, that's function 31. If there are any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none?
Function 32, and my apologies for not scrolling through the last slide there with fleet. But function 32, striving for excellent customer service here. Of course, roads are the biggest thing as part of this function, along with the next biggest, which is the ones that put them in place, engineering. So we've got paved roads. Generally, we have our paved roads plowed, salted, sanded, cared for before the province gets to their 3-digit highways, because they are bound to Highway 1 and Highway 36 as priorities. So we pride ourselves on that. We've got just-in-time services, so we're not trying to get too far ahead of ourselves, and we don't want to be behind the 8 ball. Previous discussion with Committee of the Whole, we talked about road graveling maintenance, gravel road maintenance services, and that policy is as it stands, no changes to it. So we believe we've got the just-in-time as we come around and catch those on the 20-day rotation. New to us is pathway clearing. We believe we can just absorb that through the existing budgets that we've had, so no real big deal there, but to highlight that, and that pathway has been cleared as the events have required this winter so far, so nice change for us. So what do we got here? We've got carry forward for gravel resource exploration. Jeff and the engineers currently working on that, are continuing to work on it, and as we discover new sources, we will be having those very tight-lipped conversations with you in the future in camera, because that's very high-level business intelligence that we don't want to disclose to anybody. Contracted grader, so this is our contract grader position that we've been rolling with since about May of this year, continuing forward for the full year of service. Sidewalk repairs, we've got a couple of trips and falls out there that we need to deal with next year that have been identified. Jeff has identified that his team will be looking into doing an assessment on sidewalks, see if there's anything else out there for future budgets that we need to take care of. And we'll also be looking at getting those into our asset management plans as well. And then what do we got? Capital, Steveville gravel crush, standard operating. We got a crush about every 5 years. So $2 million there. Carry forward for pathways. This is the Kinbrook Connection Pathway Partnership with the City of Brooks. EID's a partner in this as well, taking care of some of their own side of things, being fences and land for us. Carry forward, Matt had already spoke about the graders, expecting delivery in the February-March period for a few of them, and then the April-May period for the remainder. Hopefully that doesn't change. To reiterate Matt's opening remarks, at the RMA trade show, I spoke to the vendor for Brandt or John Deere, and the 872 GP grader that you saw at the trade show, he told me it was worth $770,000. That, of course, is a front wheel assist grader. We've never had those in our fleet. He simply said you can knock about $50,000 off of that. We purchased our graders for $512,000 back in January. And if we're looking at a $200,000 hit already, that's a lot of inflation over a short period of time. So our future planning of the 10-year capital is out of whack. And I 100% support what Matt said earlier. Even with inflation, I don't think I've ever seen the cost of anything rolled back when inflation goes the other way. So I think we just need to plan for the worst case scenario. Gravel roads, typical construction budget is $1.8 million, and we're looking for $2.1 million, a slight increase over previous years. Bridge files, these things are triggered through inspections through Alberta Transportation. Whatever work is required, it comes through them. We apply for STIP grants, things like that, but we do have $790,000 worth of bridge files to take care of next year. EID partnership, continuation of that program. Hopefully we can see some more uptake from people in that.
Just a question about the bridge files. Do we have input into what type of bridge, or is that Alberta Transportation that takes care of all that?
Typically what we're looking at is we pay an engineer to get a design done. Alberta Transportation reviews that design and they either agree or disagree, and if there's changes to it, then we go back and re-engineer. We are generally looking at culvert bridge size structures. We don't try to do concrete bridge decks or anything anymore unless it actually warrants it based on the span of the bridge.
Because they're more expensive?
Yes.
Okay.
Pardon me. Silver Sage overlay, so engineering investigation into what to do and when to do it. Just-in-time servicing, so there's improvements there with an overlay. Range Road 15-0, we're looking at the engineering for future overlay and timing to get that into the capital schedule. Survey equipment replacement, now we've deferred this thing for a number of years because we've been waiting on technological advances and whatnot. We're finally at that point where we believe we're satisfied with what we're seeing, so we're going to move forward with that if council so allows us to. And then operation side with Terry, tractor mount, gravel reclaimer, something that's been played with over a few years and investigated a little bit more. This is just going to try to get that very non-renewable resource back to the road surface from where it is, because when we run out, we're out. So that's what that is. And I don't know if there's any questions on any of that.
Any questions? Go ahead, Holly, please.
So you talked about just getting into pathway cleaning, but what about the pathway before this one? Like it's not like the whole thing was just done. Who was cleaning it up to this point then?
We had contracted the City of Brooks to come out with their sweeping equipment and take care of that until this year. Now having another 2.4, it only makes sense that we put it under our umbrella in its entirety.
So where are we starting to clean from then?
We're picking all of that up from the CRA all the way south to Township Road 18-2.
From the CRA on, okay.
Yep, and if the Kinbrook Connection Pathway Partnership continues and we get the next 10 kilometers, expect that I might be in for more equipment next year with another skid steer and sweeper broom if that happens, because it'll just be the timeliness of how quickly we can get it cleared.
Okay, and then I'm sure, I can't find it now, but are you not working on 2 shoulder pulls, like in the Tilly area where the roads are almost side by side? Somewhere in a binder, I came across it. It was a shoulder pull, and the roads were kind of side by side. I was trying to figure out why are you doing 2 roads that are virtually side by side instead of doing like one, and like that just seems like an odd timing.
You can hear me now. So they're 2 miles apart. Both these roads actually had an EID canal running alongside of them a few years ago. So both those roads were they pushed in the EID canal. So I got no ditches or anything alongside that road. So they're fairly close by. And being close, like there's 2 mile stretches, so they're 2 miles apart. So if I do contract them, they're close proximity. So we try to keep our projects a little bit closer together. So if I could bid it under one contract, I don't have to spread the contractors out or bid it to different contractors, right? So.
And what's the length of those roads?
They're both 2 miles each.
2 miles apart and 2 miles in length?
Oh, they're a mile apart.
Okay.
Mile apart. They're not like, oh yeah, they're a mile apart. So yeah, basically, yeah, they're a mile apart, I guess, and then 2 miles each. And probably the drainage on them is not like we're doing the full 2 miles, because some areas has some good ditching, and then some has no ditches at all. So primarily it was because we used to have a little bit of drainage there, but when EID pushed in the canals, we could push in the canals, they buried the pipe and left big hills alongside of the road. We just don't have any effective drainage along there anymore. So hoping to get maybe the EID to do that work for us, because it ties into their system as well too. So.
You. Are there any other questions? Matt, please.
Before Mark moves on away from roads, streets, walks, and lighting, we did have Councillor Screever request a conversation about the paving of Township Road 18-2 from Range Road 14-5 to the 873. We should probably pick that up right now.
So high level is when we went and improved Range Road 14-5, 18-2 and Lake Newell Resort Road. Previous council had the request of getting that 1 mile completed over to Highway 873. We did not have the support of the landowner. There was a special ask in that. We could not meet the ask at the time. And that's all due to tendering and procurement of services. And they were looking for something to sole source themselves through. So with that ask, 1.6 kilometers of road to be improved. High level estimate, $1.2 million. That's very high. What council would need to do is consider reprioritizing the paving program and putting that in there as number one. And if you're willing to fund it, then we need some engineering money to get that done and get it ready for next year, if that's to be part of the goals for 2023.
Thank you, Lynette, and then Holly.
Is that road on our list at some point in the future, or it's not even there at all at the moment?
It's not on the list at all. It got pulled after we didn't have cooperation from the landowner.
Has the landowner changed?
No.
I'm just wondering if we have a paving list in the binder, or you can pull it up. But we've looked at it before. I don't remember where it is.
Yeah, so great question. Under the agenda item 9.3.1 is the 20-year paving and overlay plan as it stands currently. And you can always find the extensive list on our website. I'll grab that and send it to council in an email.
Ellie, please.
Just a point of clarification. So 1.2 is without engineering costs. Is that what I heard?
1.2 is a very high estimate and discussion between Jeff and myself. So we don't have any special engineering behind it to support 1.2, but we'd probably need $60,000 for engineering, get us going, and then we'd be able to bring back a revised estimate for council.
Thank you.
Ellen, and then Neil. Neil, please.
I think it's a really good project, but what makes you think you're going to be able to get along with Thompson this time around?
I'm going to send Jeff.
Like, what's the problem though?
I just didn't like the land values and wanted one component of the project for himself through a sole source. And Tilma legislation for procurement came in, and we can't just give somebody $350,000 worth of fencing. So that's where that fell apart on us.
Thanks.
Holly, please.
So I'm looking at the paving plan. It says that we have 234 kilometers of paved roads that we have to maintain. Is that correct? I remember them saying about the cost, it's about so much per year to maintain gravel, as opposed to what the annual cost of pavement. If I'm looking at the schedule we have, it's pretty much strictly overlays we're doing. So to actually add extra paving into our budget, we're doing everything else, or we're going to take on, put everything skewed, pretty much, right?
The more pavement you put down today, well, and I guess that's a decision of future councils as well, is what you do with the ongoing maintenance of pavement as well. Because just because it's there today, it could be a future decision of council that it's gone tomorrow. So maybe you let pavement run out in 30 years and it gets milled back in and turned into a gravel road. Or council remains committed to keeping pavement in place where pavement was previously put. And that's where capital budgets, overlays, all of those heavy investments come in 20 years more or less every cycle.
Okay, thank you. What, do we have a decision to make about this 1 mile of, yeah.
Well, I think the biggest thing is if council supports that initiative, then we can start out with enough money to get us going on engineering, which we can limit to $60,000 if that's what you want. And that's going to have to flush out whether land acquisition is available or not, because if land acquisition is not something that's going to come from the landowners, then we're going to end up in a discussion of how hard does council want to press, because you could technically move to expropriation. Now, we've never done that because nobody ever makes any friends when you take land from people. They are fairly compensated based on market value, but it's a forced matter. And haven't done it. I know that word has been used lightly around the table in the past because it just doesn't bode well for anybody. But if it is an absolute priority for the majority or all of council, that's how we could look at doing it.
Do we have any road use estimates on that stretch of road?
I don't have any traffic estimates on it whatsoever. My best guess from observation, watching the pathway be built and whatnot, you're probably looking at least 30 to 40% of your traffic going east from Lake Newell Resort across that gravel road. You got some traffic that comes back west. I think it really depends on who works on the east or the west sides of the city of Brooks and where they have to do business for the day as well.
Okay, thank you. Adina, please.
I just wanted to say, looking at the list here, I think there's probably some other roads that might be a bigger priority than the 1 mile, 1.6 mile that goes across there. In my opinion, I could see something else being busier, used more.
Okay, thank you. Lynette, please.
Do we do traffic counts to decide, like, is that been done in the past to decide if something is worthwhile or not?
We've done traffic counts in our previous 2012 rural road study to ensure that we got the right classification of road based on traffic generators. If council would like to see something done with traffic counts on the roads on the priority list, as well as this one, we can get some traffic counts done.
What's the cost of a traffic count?
Well, we either pay somebody to sit there ourselves for 3 days, or we get some professional engineering services out to count the traffic. So we could be anywhere from a couple $1,000s to $4 or $5.
Thank you. That's good information. Holly?
I just think the bigger question is, we've got a whole paving schedule of roads that need to be done. Paving's really expensive. We're saying our economic outlook is uncertain. I don't think we want to add to our list. That's my personal opinion.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Neil, please.
My personal opinion too. I think we should get in there and do it because it's used by a lot. Like you say, half of Lake Newell Resort goes into town that way. And the last council wanted to do it. If he can make a deal with the landowner this time, let's just finish it up. Then all the roads out there are done.
Mark, go ahead.
Not for decision-making purposes today, but if council has a prerogative of targeting their number one paving project or something like that, if you want to see if we can piggyback this in at the same time and get all the engineering and whatnot together, you might see a cost savings through mobilization, demobilization. I don't know, but that might be another opportunity if, again, the majority of you support that along with.
In the meantime, I wonder if traffic count wouldn't be is that, or is that, what do we know about that, Neil?
Well, if you're gonna do traffic count, don't you have to do it on all your roads? Like, so you get a traffic count, who cares? If another road gets, if we don't know what the average is or how many cars are on the road.
Previous councils have always, and this is previous council's priority list is stemming from the 2001 rural road study. These roads were all selected based on their connectivity from community to community and commodities to markets. That's the short answer on that. There was never anything on traffic counts or any kind of weighting or criteria behind it. The elected officials have always looked at one another, and if somebody wanted to see something added to the list, they brought it to the table, they debated it, it either got added to the list or it got removed from the list. And if you wanted to see that list prioritized in a new manner, the 10 of you debated that as well and made a decision at the end of the day. My team has never had any kind of influence on that whatsoever. We can provide recommendations. If you want us to spend more money up front, getting traffic counts, doing other engineering and studies behind it, and users, non-users, we can do all of that as well, but that has not been part of the philosophy to date.
Thank you, Adina.
Again, I'm going to say the old number one has a lot of oil field traffic, buses, people. The East Tilly Road, I've had people from Scandia say to me, that road is awful. What are you going to do about it? When I'm going to Medicine Hat from Scandia, that's the way I go. Those are very busy roads. And if all I got to do is just ask and we're going to go, yeah, okay, then I'm asking old number one from Rolling Hills to Tilly or past the school, the East Tilly Road, they're in really bad shape. Like this one is a beautiful gravel road to ride on. Those ones are awful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that, Mark brought up a really good point. There's no truck traffic on this road, or very little. So, good point. What about the Jack Harpinson Road?
You brought it up, not me.
Kelly, please.
Okay, so I didn't know we had a couple million sitting around that we need to spend. We're not in that position. We have a plan. Why aren't we sticking with it? I mean, it is still debatable, the plan, but this one's not even on the radar. So why are we spending money?
I'm going to suggest that we probably should spend a little bit of time discussing again the paving plan, not today, but sometime in the near future, just the rationale and the criteria that has gone into the development of the paving plan as it is. And that doesn't include the overlays. Those are mandated, or that's on a schedule based on when we built the road, et cetera. But with regard to new paving, I think we should review at some point sooner than later what that could be an agenda item, I suppose, right? Matt, please.
Yeah, so I'd suggest we could easily pick this up again at our January committee of the whole meeting. You know, we've reviewed the paving plan once. Mark went into some great detail there. New requests surface and we can pick it up there. I think we do have an opportunity potentially with the road study that's to be completed next year to do some of the legwork on whether it's traffic counts and getting a rubric if this council's interested in being a little more technical with the rankings of when a road gets paved and is considered for paving. I think in our experience, the traffic count that you get around here isn't going to drive whether you pay
that's true.
or not.
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
And I think I'd just like to say that if you base things on traffic counts, you'll pave everything around the immediate vicinity of Brooks and you'll never get pavement anywhere else. So that's probably some of the philosophy that's come from before is if you're going to connect Gem to Rosemary, you're never going to have the same traffic count as you're going to have on Range Road 15-0 just west of Brooks between Martin Industrial Subdivision and the 542.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll be back up on Range Road 14-5 going to Bow Slope, which we didn't succeed in either due to landowner cooperation when we tried that with the municipal stimulus funding. So there's those kinds of things that I don't have any one set of criteria that says, but there are other municipalities that do, and that's exactly how they stick to it. And when somebody brings something up, it's a no because this outweighs what you're pulling from. So it's really a council's discussion as to how you want administration to look at the future of the paving program.
Well, I just think it's probably a reasonable thing for us to revisit that because the discussions we've had to date probably the context is different today because we've surfaced with some of our own suggestions, and I expect there's solid criteria for why we do what we do. We probably just need to review that, and that will probably inform our decisions as well, I think. Holly, please.
So either just today or that point, I'd be curious to know how you look at when the overlay takes priority over paving a new road. Is it just when there's an opening in the system because the overlays will be caught up, or how that's calculated in there?
No, overlays have been planned based on the surface condition of the road between the crack mitigation, potholes, things like that. It's got nothing. We've kind of tied it all together through the same funding stream, but it's not the same. It's a matter of when you guys want to see a new project paved and then where we get the funding from.
So when county council is really sure they want to pave, then just kind of make it work is kind of what it's been.
Okay, thank you. Can we move on?
Okay, the airport, I've got very little to say or do with the airport. City of Brooks is the managing partner in this. We are a 50-50 owner in the City of Brooks County of Newell Airport, Regional Airport. Town of Bazzano Airport is a completely different thing where it's 50-50 on operating side of stuff. But Brooks has identified through the Airport Commission that they're looking at putting jet fuel out there. They've been pretty successful with their other fueling system that they put out 5 to 7 years ago, I want to say. So I believe, is it still Councillor Neil Johnson that's on that board? That jet fuel, it has been part of that commission's discussion, and has a final decision been made?
I'm positive that they're going to go with it.
Yeah, so $85,000 in jet fuel, and I think that's shared costs. So any questions on the airport?
Any questions? Neil, please.
That's kind of an economic development thing too, the reasoning behind it, because it allows more planes to come in here and I don't know, probably worth a try.
Okay, function 41, water. This is the fun one. You guys have been wrapped up in this since you've been elected. So here we go. We have contracted repairs and maintenance. There's some water valves on some of our distribution system that need to be dealt with inside the hamlets. We got CNWP refunds that those doors were open, so we've been working on those. Capital side, rural water phase 2, $7.6 million. I don't know, Jeff, or somebody getting shovel in the ground here before Christmas, or going to get going before Christmas, I guess. So we'll get some money expensed, but not too much here. But carrying forward with all of that, and then going with the future contracts to get the 400 plus registrants serviced. Also in that, NRSC, it was recommended by Alberta Environment to have consistent sampling of where they pull water samples from for testing purposes. NRSC came up with water sample stations. We've got some erected in the hamlet of Lake Newell Resort, but they were supposed to be carrying forward with some more of that in Rolling Hills, Patricia, Scandia. That didn't happen this past year, so they're looking to carry that forward as well as get the ones that were going to be scheduled for 2023 in there. So that's that $34,000. those water sample stations, in essence, what they do is it's unrestricted access for the operators in a consistent spot. Currently, they send out an operator, and in cases they have to access somebody's home to go to their kitchen sink, operate that water. Personally, I'm not sure I'd be too comfortable with an employee going into somebody's home for safety purposes, whether that's the employee or the homeowner. I wouldn't want to be dealing with any he said, she said kind of claims coming back from either side of things. So I think those are a positive change in the system anyway, but that's what they're asking for there. So if there's any questions regarding those matters, I'll tend to them.
Lynette, please.
So it's just a hydrant somewhere in the hamlet?
More or less, yes. It doesn't look like a fire hydrant. It's just different.
Matt?
Put Jeff on the spot, but maybe this is a good chance. So you'll also see there we've recommended a 3% increase to the water rates. You'll see in the reports, most of our, well, all of our utility systems are subsidized from general taxes. A large part of that's going towards the future replacement of those assets. We had on our corporate strategic priorities list revisiting the water hookup options. So we, issued some refunds. We're looking at moving forward. What's the vision that we should have on that schedule of fees for the next ratepayer who walks through our front doors and says, I want to hook up to the rural water system. I realize I've missed phase 2. Previously, it was $7,700 to sign up, plus construction costs. Jeff and I have had some spitball conversations on it. Some of the ideas we've thrown around is, if existing folks who have access to that system paid $1,500, do we need to charge them anything? Do we just make them responsible for construction costs, which is going to far exceed $1,500? So there needs to be capacity in the line, first of all. But if you walk through that door, Jeff tells you you've got capacity in that line and you can be a partner in that system so long as you pay for construction. Is that an idea council would entertain? We also talked about, well, maybe they pay the $1,500 plus construction costs. We just want to make sure we're not in a position where we charge folks more right now and 5-10 years down the road when population has exploded, because the county of Newell has got to be one of the best places to live in this province, definitely in the world. So we're going to have some population growth. We just want to make sure we're not cutting refund checks to people down the road. And the system works better with volume, efficiencies, economies of scale. So I'm going to kick that out to you guys and see what you say next.
I like the idea. Jeff, please.
Yeah, like Matt mentioned, Tim and I have had some kind of just harebrained conversations about it and where we might want to go, what we might want to do, or what we might want to recommend. And he's right. That's currently the what's in our schedule of fees by law right now is the $7,700 plus the cost of lines. We've had people come in, we have had people register, and I think they're happy after they register, but it is quite intrusive, that $7,700 up front, which brings us to why even the $1,500. I think what this also does is it brings us back to kind of a similar situation with what we would expect for somebody connecting to a hamlet distribution system. We wouldn't charge them that upfront registration fee, registration cost. They'd be on the hook for the design and the installation of the actual system servicing their property. So I like it. Matt did mention the efficiencies in the system when we have more people hooked up, when we have more water for sale, and I think that's absolutely right. We want to sell more water, and making it more accessible and available, I think, will help that.
Agreed. I think it's the driver, one of the drivers for phase 2, and so to me it makes some sense to waive the application fee. It still leaves a benefit to the people who are signing up today or being installed, and it's good for everybody in the system as long as there's capacity. And it's an incentive for residents to settle here and take one line off their costs that is an advantage to this district.
Yeah, going back again, this is a huge economic development initiative. Like when you're giving away $18,000 worth of product for even 7,000, but I think it's good for the area, and I hope everybody appreciates that. Like it's a real boom for our area.
All right, Kelly.
I agree. I'm just wondering if the no charge hookup fees were at the right time. I mean, we've got ratepayers who just signed up for $1,500. So now we're talking about a no charge sign up. I'm just wondering if the timing is right.
Okay, on that.
I see that
Yeah.
a year or two down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, so registration is closed.
Right.
We're going to have somebody walk through that front door and want to sign up because they missed, they didn't hear, whatever. The ship has sailed on getting the $18,000 subsidy that Councillor Johnson just talked about. If they walk through this door, you could charge $1,500, you could be zero, but they're paying for the construction. So if they've got a half mile that they need to plow in a line for a half mile, they pay for that. So their contribution to the system is the capital that goes into the system. It would be designed to our standard. Jeff would give them the quote. So they'd pay construction costs where everybody else paid a $1,500 registration fee.
There will be precious few, if any, installations that would go in today at $1,500. Those will all be higher than that. And I think it's a good consideration to say, I mean, because now applications are closed. Do we want to revisit a year or two from now 15 or 20 people who paid $1,500 and now, you know, and then waiting for us to decide what we really want to do? I think negating that application fee is a pretty good move in terms of a local incentive to say, if you want to move in here, you got some expenses, but we're not adding to it. And you're taking advantage of existing infrastructure too. So if you live right next door to it, just have to punch under the road or just down the street. It's not very much, but it's now a user pay installation, correct? Lynette, please.
I agree with Kelly that maybe the timing's not quite right. I think we'll have a bunch of people wanting refunds and such then. But my question is on the 3% increase in rates. What's that increasing? That cost of the water to?
Yeah, cost of water, and I think we put in the agenda package a summary of the different rates. So there's a base charge for both water and sewer, that's up by 3%. There's a consumption charge for your water, that's up around 3%, as well as on the rural water system as well. We always look at how are we in comparison with other municipalities. I was looking at Parkland because I was snooping on their site the other day, and they're north of $3 per cube. So we're 2 and change. Let me pop it up here for the consumption charge. 242. Thanks, Councillor Chrisman.
So we set the rates for the water for the rural users, and NRSC sets the rates for the urban ones?
NRSC sets the rate that they charge all the urban. So I think we're at probably $1.05 now. I'm trying to remember. So they charge us for the water delivered into our system, and then we charge our users. Each municipality will then charge their own users for the volume of water they use.
Please.
I'm just wondering if the water utility statistics and performance measures are old ones because they're the 2021. Are those updated ones or the last ones we saw? Because we're still seeing, 57.62% water loss in Rolling Hills, that they haven't really improved. In fact, they've actually
Yeah,
gotten
so
worse, right?
I'll respond to that not a whole lot has changed in that situation. What I can advise council is we know that there are not any significant water line breaks without losses being incurred. What we suspect, and this is what we're working on operationally, is getting, and Rolling Hills is not the one to talk about because their hydrant system is not tied to their potable water system, but the other hamlets that have fire hydrants in it and stuff like that, every time NRSC goes and flushes hydrants, my ask is that they now start estimating how much water went through those hydrants, because that is making up the loss that you're seeing in some of those statistics. Same when Stuart goes out and does fire flow hydrant testing and stuff like that, how much water is he pushed through the system, estimated costs, because those are operating costs. That's not water loss, they're operating costs, but we need to get those narrowed down to see where we truly have water loss and what those numbers actually look like. And then we can start targeting things. Is it because there are old water meters in the hamlet of Lake Newell Resort and they're just starting to get worn out and they need to be replaced? Because we did all the water meters in every other hamlet with the exception of Tilly in 2014, 13, 14. So some of those things break down and wear out over time, but there's nothing significant. We were down in Scandia for 2 years probably looking for a water line leak, and it's embarrassing to say it, but it was flowing right into the sewer. Found it, yeah. It wasn't, but nothing surfacing on the roads. Nobody's house is settling out so bad. Nobody has water in their basement like that, right? So we need to get the operational costs and consumption out of that equation to see what truly exists at the end of the day. And then, and nobody likes to talk about it, but in a lot of cases, mobile home owners are capable of getting underneath of their mobile homes. What, I said something wrong. Somebody's very angry at me. I think we probably had a bunch of snow come off the roof, would be my guess. Do we all feel safe? Because we all keep looking up. So anyway, mobile homeowners or people that don't have basements that can access their service line before it gets to their water meter have been known to bypass. And they'll run a little bit through their water meter and then they'll flip the valve, and then they'll just be consuming otherwise. Sometimes people have a tap on the outside of the home that is not connected through the water meter as well. It's been bypassed, and that's how it's been forever. Yeah, and water the lawns with it. So guess where all the water's going? Because that's a lot of consumption, right? It's not like just filling your sink full of water. There are things like that that exist that a water meter doesn't necessarily narrow it down as to who it actually is, or this, that, or whatever. And we can spend exorbitant amount of time looking for something that doesn't add up to much in the loss. Believe me, it's a loss. We don't want to see loss outside of what general operating losses are, and those are already laid out in the criterias. But there's going to be some. But how we narrow it is a collaboration between the utilities department, making sure everybody actually has a water meter, and then getting those operational costs out of there as well. So that's what I can say on that. And yes, those things need to be updated, but nothing's significantly changed in those numbers.
Matt, and then Kelly.
Yeah, and just for council's information, the performance measures and statistics that you see in the narrative, we only update those once a year for final budget, because it is a bit of a task to pull all that together. So we'll wait till January comes and we'll get fresh numbers for you there.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Kelly, I'm sorry.
And my question was going to be, is this where we have the conversation about users paying for their sewer costs, or is that somewhere else? This is the place?
And wastewater, right?
So right now, we're charging a flat fee for our hamlet residents, and maintaining their underground pipes at the rest of the county's general expense, correct? Right. So we've talked about it in the past. Can we move forward on looking into what that would look like for Hamlet residents to pick up their expenses?
Thank you, Kelly. Holly?
Can you clarify, Kelly, you're talking about different hamlets and their costs? Like to break each one down to see what the realistic costs are for each hamlet?
Right. And the idea here is to have a look at what it's costing to supplement their existence and allowing the residents to see what it's costing to run that hamlet. They're not seeing the full costs. I know when my sewer breaks down, I don't call the county. I don't think you do either. So that's my point.
That's never done any good, has it?
But yet we're paying for it as ratepayers, so.
Thank you, Kelly. Matt?
Yeah, so just so council's aware, I'll draw your attention on page 105 behind your tab 41. So we like to look at these numbers as well administratively, so we've got some idea where the subsidy level is at. Page 105, that report's titled Combined Utilities by Location. That rolls your water budget and your sewer budget for each of the systems together. So you'll see Rolling Hills, the net draw, bottom line, you can see it across for each of the locations. What we're asking the taxpayer to foot. If you want to see what that looks like just for water, that's on page 106. If you want to see what it looks like for the wastewater, that's on a page 113 behind your tab 42. We flirted with the idea, or I've at least flirted with the idea, I don't know if it's been out loud, but a lot of places on the sewer charge will have the base charge plus the volumetric as well, and we don't have the volumetric. I would suggest if council is looking at a change in how those rates are applied, that it would be a good idea to engage the public on the options, make them aware of the issue, and you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but we have tried to surface this information so that folks understand the value they get out of their utility systems. Yeah, you pay taxes, but you're getting a subsidy through utilities.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Holly, please.
Well, I guess I'm just curious. So now where is the wastewater one? Because that's, I mean, we've talked about, is it here?
Tab 42.
Just as we've talked about with Rolling Hills having the additional fixing, but I don't see their cost being as high as I would have thought it would have been if they have that much. It doesn't seem to add up. Right? Every time you go to Rolling Hills to fix something, is it being tagged to Rolling Hills? Just given our discussion earlier with Dan.
Yes. Yeah, and keep in mind you're looking at budget figures, right? On those reports, it's not the actual results for each location. It's budget. When we're looking at repairs and maintenance, you always have, if something goes wrong in a hamlet, you're probably going to be spending more than you've got budgeted. We try and keep the budget to a 3-year average kind of territory. If you're Rolling Hills, we've probably weighted a little bit heavier because we know things break pretty routinely down there. So that might be a little bit higher, but yeah, you're looking at budget figures. We can generate all these same reports, a 5-year. We look at them every which way. We're making progress. You know, each year we do increase the rates. You'll see that in the rate summary attachment, you know, 5%, 3%. We had 1 year of 7%. We had 1 year when we made a pretty big leap from a buck a cube to $1.75 a cube. So we're headed in the right direction. We're just getting there slowly.
Thank you. Holly, please.
I think to be fair to communities like Scandia, who is paying a, what's the term, Matt? Help me here. They're paying a local improvement tax because they had all the work done and they made that commitment to get it done. I'd like to see that made more fair for those communities who haven't done it, to pay the expense costs, only fair to the ones who are paying the local improvement tax. So I would like to see that.
Okay. Can we move along with, and we'll further consideration? Yep. Okay. Good.
Okay, function 42, some yellow highlights here. Carry forward for sewer line flushing. So sewer line flushing and sewer line flushing, my error in grammar, are the same thing. We didn't do any sewer line flushing this year. We did have some money in there to look at Patricia's sewer flushing before. However, we're a little bit concerned that if we had too much volume of water to flush those lines, that we have more degradation of the system going on than keeping it intact. And then we just simply didn't get to what our plan was. So we were hoping to maybe get through a hamlet per year, maybe doubling up on 2 per year to try to get those main lines flushed to eliminate any buildup and things like that in the system that potentially cause backups in homes. And that's just good maintenance practice. It's never been done since I've been here, other than when we did the CCTV inspections for the infrastructure master plans. Hamlet or Rolling Hills, we cannot do a sewer line flush. That is a completely closed system, so it is what it is. But we just want to keep up with the best practices and keep those systems operating optimally. The other item on here, and the bigger one, whether that's 6 X's or 5 X's or maybe 7 X's, I'd hate to say that, but we have the Lake Newell Resort Lift Station refurbishment. The study was delivered to us November 4th. Jeff and I have not had the time to get through that study to ask our questions to find out what is an absolute mandatory thing that needs to be done versus this is a nicety while we're here to get done to keep those costs in check. So that's why there is no figure with that right now, but hopefully by the time we bring this back to present, we can have a number in for final interim budget. If not, you'll see a final number in the final budget come next spring. But there are nonetheless things that need to be done in that lift station. And when we get those costs down to what they need to be, in our opinion, then we'll also be asking council as to who should bear the cost on that, because that is a pretty significant number. Is that through a local improvement charge, or does the county taxpayer eat that and carry on with the discussion you just had? So I guess if there's any other questions to wastewater.
Holly, please.
Is there any grants for like the lift station refurbishment out there, or not anymore?
Good question. Nothing that I'm really aware of right now where we haven't got other grant money tagged to other projects and stuff. MWWP, that thing is oversubscribed every year. Scandia got in when we had that grant money. Patricia elected to not advance any projects due to their inability to fund that. Same with Rolling Hills, because we had the funding for each and every hamlet of the day then. That was before Tilly, of course, and Tilly paid the local improvement on theirs without any funding really other than what we got from municipal affairs. So we always look for those opportunities to help reduce the burden rate. So
Lynette, please.
When we get those numbers for the lift station and stuff, when you bring them to us, could we see them as a percentage of population and who that's affecting? Like, do you know what I mean?
clarity percentage of population just for the hamlet, because it'll be all of Lake Newell Resort. Those are the only people tied in to deal with this.
But as to how many people, like, if you just spread it across the whole county, how many people are paying for that little bit? You know, do you understand? Does that make sense? just so you get a concept of where the money is going and who's footing bills for who, kind of thing.
Matt, please.
I'd suggest a per capita basis is probably the wrong base if you're looking at answering the question, who's paying for this? We'd look at comparing it with assessment and who's paying the tax bill. So if you go back to, we had those two pie charts earlier today where the assessment is and where the tax comes from. 84% of the bill would be non-residential paying for. If you, and we would not recommend that lift station is funded from general property tax. We're not going to go there. We're going to recommend a local improvement tax. We'll shake the grant tree. We'll probably even put a recommendation in front of you to use some of the money that we've socked away in the infrastructure fund specifically for this. So back to the slides earlier today, I think we were at 80% of the accumulated amortization charge is in the piggy bank. So we'd look at Lake Newell Resort lift station specifically and do the math on that and say, all right, if we've saved 80%, what does that mean for Lake Newell Resort? And give them credit for that amount. So a combination of grants, that, and local improvement tax.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, nothing more there. Waste management, this is NRSWMA. These are the numbers from that board, and I really don't have anything else to say about it other than we are carrying forward the dollars for the Tilly landfill closure. That's in the liability account right now, and Jeff is working with engineers through some of the matters on that existing site. And hopefully in 2023, it will be complete.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to 61.
61, planning and development. So we have the municipal intern with us until next September, sorry. That's there. We've got planning services with the MDP rewrite. And then safety code consultant fees. And really other than that, it's status quo for the department. And the MDP should be wrapped up in the first quarter of the year, right? So.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any further questions? If not, thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome. Have a great afternoon.
Well on our way.
We got all of 10 minutes left with the most important department. He gets the mic last.
Yeah.
I'll get my show.
Yeah. So we're agriculture services. Mr. Green is on his way, I'm sure. Welcome, Todd.
Oh, hi. How is everybody doing?
We're doing well.
Have we asked all of the tough questions so far today? Because I can go and come back We need to ask somebody else. Just joking. I don't have a whole bunch of stuff to discuss today.
Okay.
Most things are pretty status quo, I think. The one thing that we did discuss early on was bringing back our coyote control incentive program. So we have, what we did is we took a break from that for 2 seasons. And we discussed that earlier this year. So we've put it back in.
Okay. Matt, you had a question?
Todd, just for council's information, can you unpack when that program starts and ends?
Yeah, so typically we started on December 1st and it runs through till March 30th of the next year. So we don't have any money in the 2022 budget for the program to start this year. So if approved, it would start January 1st of 2023. Is that what you're looking for? Yeah, so if anybody hasn't been involved in that program before, we take in coyotes. We don't actually take them. We just see the whole unskinned coyote. We dock an ear, and the landowner is able to sell the hide for other monies to the fur buyers. So we partner with fur buyers to try to make use of all those harvested coyotes as well.
Okay, any questions? Oh, Holly, you have a question.
Well, I was just reading the narrative. Where is the Millicent Buck for Wildlife Park, Squirrel Property Parking Lot, Interlake Parking Lot? Where are these things?
Well, we need to do some more council touring because there is a lot of wonderful properties. The Millicent Buck for Wildlife property is just north of Lynette's house, actually. Where's Lynette? There's Lynette, like maybe a mile north of Lynette's house. Right? Not even? So 1 mile west of the One Tree Road on the 544 and 2.5 miles north. Close? Yeah? So that's the Millicent Buck for Wildlife property. I think there's 5 quarters up there. It's a kind of a natural area for wildlife. The Sproul property, oddly enough, is directly across from Councillor Short's house. There's a full quarter section there. There might be a trend. I don't know. It's a good council to have. And that's the Patook property. That's very close to your place. The Interlake is just north of the Duchess Overpass. It's essentially that bird watching area. There's a small parking lot there. The Aqueduct is the Aqueduct. It's just south of the main canal. There's a big parking lot, and that's where everybody goes to park for fishing, or typically.
I just learn things every time from you, Todd.
I'm telling you, I am full of very valuable information.
Todd, can you tell us about the shelter belt program? That's going to be news.
That is, yeah, that was on the list as well. So last council meeting when we were talking about a shelter belt policy, you guys and Matt kind of threw some direction at us to figure something out to help with soil erosion. And so we met with the experts. I mean, we met with Dan Guel from the PhD program and the EID and asked them, you know, do we need 2 competing programs? We kind of didn't think so. So that how do we bolster his program? And part of the things that he needed was just labor resources was kind of the first one. Some oversight was another one that he kind of runs himself a little bit thin, especially if anybody at the EID needs his support. He kind of gets pulled away from his normal duties. Some equipment and some money down the road probably if the program was to expand. But kind of that RFD that I threw together and Matt helped with, just looking for a couple extra laborer positions in this budget coming up. So that usually adds, you know, with salaries and benefits and all that, it's about $20,000 for a 4-month position. So we were looking for 2 of those in next year's budget. So that would be, I guess, an extra 40,000. And then our environmental services supervisor would help oversee some of those projects with Dan, kind of cooperate with him.
Yeah. Thanks, Todd. Holly, you have a question?
So currently, the tree planting program has 4 students who work with Dan. So are there going to be 6 then? Will there be more planting? Are they going to increase the number of trees they're planting or the same? Because that might interest me actually seeing an increase.
Yeah, so the idea is to see an increase. And that's kind of why we wanted maybe a more structured, slower approach to getting into it, because Dan and his team already have everything lined up for 2023. So what we want to do is make sure we take care of the 2022 plantings with them as labor, because they do a second year maintenance program on their plantings. So help them with the 22 maintenance on the plantings, and then 2023 help with the planting, mulching, and maintenance. Do you know what I mean? So we would have 2022 planted projects to maintain. We would have 2023 planting and maintenance on those plantings as well. Does that make any sense to you? So yes, we would have 6 to do what they're currently trying to do with 4.
But if he has 2023 set up, there's no additional trees going in with you we're putting in $80,000, but no more trees are being planted. It's just being nice and learning.
I think it's getting everything going and making sure we help those plantings succeed. So planting the trees is the easiest part of the program, right? It's the maintenance and the making sure that they get a good footing. And that's what we want to do. And then 2024, we'll take 2023 to get everybody for 2024 going. So we'll increase our tree plantings in 2024 and beyond. So currently he has, I think it was 8 producers set up for 2024 and 2025. But he hasn't worked with them to plant for 2023. Do you know what to make sure that the site is ready and the trees are ordered? And,
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
We just had this done 3 years ago. So
Yeah.
we had to do all the fencing. We did all the prep work.
Yep.
I'm just struggling to see, because I haven't been through this, and I mean, his crew's working, no problem, and they did a decent job, how we're going to throw $80,000 into a program but not have any actual outcomes the first year. Like, it just seems odd. There's no extra trees. It's just, we're just, do you know where I'm going? Like, I know what you're saying, but I'm just thinking,
Yep.
what's the benefit for anybody in the first year? We're giving $80,000. There's actually no benefit anywhere. It's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah, I think so. What we would be trying to do, Councillor Johnson, is utilizing just $40,000, so 2 seasonal laborers. So we would utilize them in in the EID PhD program. And when they're not doing those maintenance, we would use them in our own projects as well. So we don't anticipate that it's going to be 5 days a week for 20 weeks. We would assume that it's going to be a spike in ebbs and flows through the season coming. Yeah. Okay.
Just thinking, giving him more 2 full-time people, I wasn't getting it, but I understand where you're going now.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't clarify, or I didn't say that well.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing, Matt, please.
Yeah, so just to be clear, this $40,000 isn't in the draft that's in front of you. I'm not hearing opposition to it. We would roll it into the draft that gets presented December, unless I begin to hear opposition to the idea.
Yeah, thanks for that clarity. And then I would bring back the shelter bell policy to a council meeting, which would include the partnership, I guess, that we have with the EID.
Great. Okay, that sounds good. Moving on to parks and programs. Item number 72, right? That's where we're at.
Yeah, so on the operations side, I think, because we never really talked about capital side on ag services, but if you guys are good with that, I'm also good with that. It's nothing new at all. So parks and programs, we have a little bit more grounds maintenance to do. I mean, we added some those new sites. We anticipate there being a little bit more septic that needs to be hauled out of there. And then what we did this year, which actually was something we hadn't done in years, was go through our labor that we charge back to Emerson Park. So we do cost recovery from ag services. So we send all of our staff to the park and they do all the wonderful maintenance that happens there. And then the park kind of as an internal transfer pays for ag services. So there was a good jag of money that we actually updated those numbers, and good on Will for making that more accurate. So.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr. Crane.
I told you all the hard questions were done.
Yeah.
You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, I think that we are ready to go to in camera, correct? Okay, so a motion to go in camera would be in order. Neil, all in favor, please indicate. It's carried. Thank you.